Hey everybody, Jen here with Element 20. I'm out at the Oroville Garden Center today. I'm hanging out with Greg, our special guest. Greg is so amazingly educated in soil science. He's taught me a ton, and he's one of the lead brains in coming together with the all soils, different mixes, the blends that they have here. They put a lot of thought into the different kinds of soil that they're recommending to you. These guys are experts. If you have any questions about gardening, you need to head on down here right now. Please let me introduce Greg. I would love for him to tell you a little bit more about his background and what he knows about Kelzyme and why they're using it in all 5 of their all soils blends here at Oroville Garden Center.
So I'm Greg Phelan. I'm the lead formulator, director of plant and soil science at All Soils. Here to talk about Kelzyme today. So we use Kelzyme in all of our soils, and we do that because calcium is exceptionally good at buffering acids. So if you're fertilizing with, let's say, ammonium sulfate or any kind of fertilizers that acidify your mix, it'll kind of stabilize that and it'll buffer that, so it'll prevent it from jumping too far in the acidic direction. So there's a lot of reasons why I like calcium. It is crucial for the plant to produce there's about 8 different enzymes that have been identified that calcium is essential for utilizing in plants and fungus. Calcium is also synergistic with cytokinin production, and for those of you that are not familiar, cytokinin is the hormone responsible for bud and flower development. So it's absolutely linked with yield, and it is used in every cell in the plant and fungus in order to strengthen the cellular structure. So it's totally crucial. It helps the absorption of other nutrients, and like I said, the plants aren't the only thing that benefit from it. The fungi really benefit. Bacteria can even benefit from it. And it's absolutely crucial in a production system.
So Greg, what kinds of plants can benefit from the Kelzyme composite?
So plants in general need calcium. If you are deficient in calcium in any way, they will absolutely benefit from Kelzyme applications. Kelzyme can be added in several different ways. You can dilute it in water, which I love. It's totally water soluble, so you can dilute it in water. You can adjust the pH to 6.2 is the exact pH where calcium is most available to plants. That's what I like to do. You can also mix it directly in the soil. If you have a soil that is slightly acidic, it's excellent. It'll buffer that acidity right out, and it'll supply a lot of nutrients to the leaves or to the plant. You can also foliar apply Calzine. It's very effective that way. I like to apply it to the soil especially because it's utilized as it gets pulled up to the roots and placed everywhere it needs in the plant. Because it's immobile, it's more efficient to the roots, but it works very well as, a pesticide spray on the leaves. It'll leave a little residue. That alkaline residue will also prevent mold growth, which is excellent, so I use it in both those applications. But yeah, for our mixes, we put it in there mostly to buffer the acidity and to just supply that readily available calcium.
So Greg, tell me a little bit more about how you formulate all the different blends at allsoils.com, because they're all a little bit different, right? Unique.
Yeah. So what we do is a bit unique. So we take all of our raw materials, our coco coir, our perlite, our pumice, our peat moss, our compost and castings. We mix them together in different ratios to achieve our different textures for our soils. Then we take that raw ingredients before we fertilize it and we send it to a lab. And the reason we do that is different batches of compost and castings contribute different nutrients to the soil. So it's always a little bit different. So the fertilizers that we'll have to add is a little bit different. And in order to balance those minerals properly, we send them to the lab before. I take the lab analysis and then I balance the minerals in each soil blend afterwards, and then we remix it. So the soils are never hot, the minerals are balanced, and you have the right ratio of cations. And this is a very important point because you want, especially with calcium and potassium, to have the right ratio. You actually want to have quite a bit more calcium than potassium because potassium is a lot more available to the plants than calcium is, especially as you get into flower. So we up the calcium, we use Calzyme to kind of buffer that pH and to provide that plant available calcium to the plants so that they have a very strong vegetative start. Calcium has an affinity with cytokinin production. At the same time, it provides very good vegetative energy, and now we do supply that vegetative energy with nitrogen as well, but we have a very good amount of calcium to produce that growth hormone cytokinin, which is so essential later on for the production of flowers, and is really linked to yield really more than anything I know. And so that's a focal point for us is calcium.
All right, so Greg, we were talking a little bit about the different stages of growth. So when I'm on the road, I get a ton of questions, and thank you for everyone who sends me DM questions, whatnot. Please keep them coming about the amount of calcium needed for the different stages of growth. So you were talking about how during veg, it's really important to have available calcium. Can you tell me a little bit more about why?
Yeah, so there are 4 nutrients that cause very strong vegetative growth. The first 3 have an affinity with auxin, and those nutrients in order of their affinity with auxin are chloride, nitrate, nitrogen, and potassium. Those cause very strong vegetative growth, but they have an affinity with auxin. Now, auxin is the primary vegetative hormone, causes lateral growth. Now, if you have too much auxin in your plant because of mineral imbalances, it'll cause internode elongation, which is the opposite of what we want in any agronomic system. So calcium is the 4th nutrient that causes very strong vegetative growth, yet it does not have an affinity with auxin. It has an affinity with cytokinin. So kind of the secret trick here is to get a lot of your vegetative energy from calcium primarily. You need nitrogen, you need potassium, you need chloride in small amounts, but it's really important to focus, especially on veg, on calcium because of its affinity to cytokinin. Focusing on that will give you a higher yield later on in flower. When you get into flower, calcium becomes less available. What you want to usually do is shift. In veg, you want to have a surplus of calcium and you want to have minimal amounts of potassium. As you move into flower, calcium becomes less available and potassium is still very available to the plant. So you can start upping your potassium then, but calcium is less available. So it's important to be flush on your calcium in veg. That will secure your quality yield more than just about anything.
So it sounds like what you're saying is when someone's first planting, when they're moving their clone to a larger pot or transplanting to a larger space or their final home, mixing with Kelzyme in the soil, making it readily available during those first stages of life will have a lot to do with what you yield, the health of your plant.
Absolutely.
In general. That's
absolutely
awesome.
It's critical for any new tissue to grow. It's critical for root growth. Growing root tips is where all your cytokinin is produced. So you need to have calcium available right there at the growing root tips.
Well, and this is why Kelzyme is so wonderful to use as a cloning help as well, right?
Totally.
It does a similar thing that a rooting gel does. It turns those systems on to say we need roots here.
It's literally activating enzymes. Like I said, 8 different enzymes it activates. And,
I love that.
They don't function without the presence of calcium.
I love that. Greg, I could not be more grateful that you were here with us today. Thank you for your support. I'm so glad that you love Calzine, you use Calzine, you believe in Calzine. And you guys, we couldn't be more excited to partner with allsoils.com. If you guys have any questions about All Soils or anything that we mentioned in this video, please reach out to me or you can reach out to Greg.
The number that you'll see on allsoils.com or on our Instagram will reach me personally, and I'll be very willing to answer any of your questions as well about Calzine, about our soils, how I formulate them, fertilization programs, anything like that.
Go check out allsoils.com. Follow Oroville Garden Center on social. Make sure you follow Kelzyme and Element 20 as well. Thanks so much, you guys. We'll see you soon.